Our exclusive interview with Julian Assange. He's standing by from his safe room at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. First, our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has more on Assange and the assistance WikiLeaks is providing to NSA leaker Edward Snowden. Good morning, Pierre.
Good morning, George. WikiLeaks officials were with Snowden when he fled from Hong Kong to Russia, and they have provided him with legal guidance. Assange is said to be pressing Ecuadorian officials to grant Snowden's request for asylum. Some say it's the latest provocation of the U.S.
He has long been a prickly thorn in the side of the U.S. government. But who is Julian Assange? Hacker, activist, a journalist, or fugitive criminal?
We've exposed the world's secrets.
He is the mastermind behind WikiLeaks, which has published the secrets of nations and is now at the heart of a global debate over the public's right to know.
The WikiLeaks organization published hundreds more internal government documents.
Assange has embarrassed the powerful and revealed top-secret information about U.S. and other government activities.
A bunch of bodies laying there.
But at what cost?
It puts people's lives in danger, threatens our national security.
Now the man who has been on a crusade to expose what he believes is wrongdoing faces accusations of his own.
You have no right to arrest Julian Assange!
For more than a year, he's been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he sought refuge to avoid possible criminal charges. And today, WikiLeaks and Assange are standing shoulder to shoulder with perhaps the most damaging leaker of them all, Edward Snowden, the fugitive former government contractor who went public with top-secret information about some of the crown jewels of the intelligence community.
Some U.S. officials say, make no mistake, these leaks have serious consequences, that the terrorists are changing the way they communicate because of these disclosures. George?
Okay, Pierre, thanks. Let's talk now to Julian Assange from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, joined here in New York by Jesslyn Radak, a former whistleblower from the Justice Department who disclosed details of post-9/11 interrogation practices, now with the Government Accountability Project. Welcome to you both. And Mr. Assange, let me begin with you. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about where Edward Snowden is right now and where he's expected to go?
Thank you, George. I wish I could answer these questions of yours in more detail. The situation now with Edward Snowden is a very sensitive one. It's a matter of international diplomatic negotiations, so there's little that I can productively say about what is happening directly. But look, let's pull back a bit. Why is it that Mr. Snowden is not in the United States? He should feel that he should be afforded justice in the United States. But his situation is very similar to a situation that I face and that my staff face, where we have been sucked into a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia. That's where the charges for Mr. Snowden came from, Alexandria, Virginia. Well, what do we know about that district? It's 6 kilometres from the centre of Washington, D.C. The jury pool is made up of the CIA, Pentagon, etc. In the legal community in the United States, it's known as the rocket docket because of the lack of scrutiny procedures have there. There's a 99% chance that if you're, sorry, a 99.97% chance that if you're a target of a grand jury, you'll be indicted, and a 99% chance that if you're indicted by a grand jury, you will be convicted. So this is not a situation, ignoring all the political rhetoric which we've seen, which has been terrible over the past 2 weeks, where Mr. Snowden can feel that he would be afforded justice.
But is there any country right now that will grant Mr. Snowden asylum?
Well, under UN conventions, Mr. Snowden has the right to apply to nearly every country for asylum. Of course, asylum decisions are always a mixture of the political and the legal. And I think there are several countries where it is politically possible for Mr. Snowden to receive asylum, and many countries, of course, where he's legally entitled to that kind of protection. No one is alleging that any of his acts are anything other than political, that he has acted in a manner to draw attention to a very serious problem in the United States, where without the will of Congress, without the will of the American population, we now have a state within a state. We have a transnational surveillance apparatus Glenn Greenwald just last night spoke about how a new technology to be rolled out by the National Security Agency is going to attempt to intercept 1 billion mobile phone calls a day. No one signed up for this. Obama does not have a mandate for that.
With respect,
no one has
Mr.
a mandate
Assange,
for that.
many people
Congress
have said
has been
that this
taken
is,
for a ride.
Excuse me, many people said this is far more than political, including Secretary of State John Kerry. He spoke out on this earlier this week saying that Snowden's revelations are putting people at risk. Take a look.
People may die as a consequence of what this man did. It is possible the United States will be attacked because terrorists may now know how to protect themselves in some way or another that they didn't know before.
Does that concern you at all?
Well, look, we have heard this rhetoric. I myself was subject to precisely this rhetoric 2-3 years ago, and it all proved to be false. And we had this terrible discussion about, which even exists in some of the tabloid press today, about WikiLeaks causing harm. But not a single US government official, no one from the Pentagon, no one from any government says that any of our revelations in the past 6 years has caused anyone to come to physical harm. And the revelations by Snowden, I mean, these are even more abstract.
Have you spoken to Mr. Snowden, and are you confident he's safe right now?
Publishing. Our legal people have been in contact with Mr. Snowden. I can't say anything about the present situation, but you know, the United States cancelled his passport. Joseph Biden, the day before yesterday, personally called President Correa, trying to pressure him. That's not acceptable. Asylum is a right that we all have. It's an international right. The United States has been founded largely on accepting political refugees from other countries and has prospered by it. Mr. Snowden has that right. Ideally, he should be able to return to the United States. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in, and hopefully another country will give him the justice that he deserves.
Edward Snowden's father has spoken out. He fears that you and WikiLeaks are manipulating his son, and he said that, quote, I think WikiLeaks, their focus isn't necessarily the Constitution of the United States. That's a concern for me. How do you respond to Edward Snowden's father?
Well, he didn't say that. He said might be. Mr. Snowden's father, as a parent, of course he is worried in this situation. Every father would be worried in this situation. We have established contact with Mr. Snowden's father's lawyer to put some of his concerns to rest. But I mean, this isn't a situation that that WikiLeaks is in charge of, if you like. This is a matter for states at a very, very serious level to understand and sort out and behave responsibly. Because we've had some experience in the past with publishing, with attacks and political rhetoric from the United States, with Asylum and so on. And I have a personal sympathy for Mr. Snowden. We did what we could and will continue to do so.
You have put yourself in the middle of this.
Try and help him through.
And I want to ask a further question on that. Glenn Greenwald has said that no matter what happens to Snowden, his secrets, the secrets that he's taken, will get out. How? And does WikiLeaks have possession of those secrets right now?
Look, there is no stopping the publishing process at this stage. Great care has been taken to make sure that Mr. Snowden can't be pressured by any state to stop the publication process. I mean, the United States, by cancelling his passport, has left him for the moment marooned in Russia. Is that really a great outcome by the State Department? Is that really what it wanted to do? I think that's every citizen has the right to their citizenship. To take someone's principal component of citizenship, their passport, away from them is a disgrace. Mr. Snowden hasn't been convicted of anything. There are no international warrants out for his arrest. To take a passport from a young man in a difficult situation like that is a disgrace. He is a hero. He has told the people of the world and the United States that there is mass, unlawful, interception of their communications, far beyond anything that happened under Nixon. Obama can't just turn around like Nixon did and said, it's okay if the president does it, if the president authorizes it.
That's not what he's saying, but sir, he has also broken the law. And let me bring that now to Jesslyn Radick, who's also here with me right now. Julian Assange mentioned Edward Snowden's father, who's also written, his attorney has written a letter to Eric Holder, the Attorney General, saying that he believes that his son would be willing to come back to the United States if he would not be detained or imprisoned prior to trial, if he would not be subject to a gag order, if he would be tried in the venue of his choosing. Do you think it would make sense for Snowden to return under those circumstances?
I actually don't. I have represented people like Thomas Drake, who was an NSA whistleblower, who actually did go through every conceivable internal channel possible, including his boss, the Inspector General of his agency, the Defense Department Inspector General, and 2 congressional committees, and the U.S. turned around and prosecuted him, and did so for espionage, and threatened to tie him up for the rest of his life in jail. I think Snowden's outlook is bleak here, and instead of focusing on Snowden and shooting the messenger, we should really focus on the crimes of the NSA, because whatever laws Snowden may or may not have broken, they are infinitesimally small compared to the 2 major surveillance laws and the 4th Amendment of the Constitution that NSA has violated.
As the president has pointed out, were passed by the Congress or overseen by a court.
Well, both of those are incorrect. Congress has not been fully informed. Only
They've passed the laws. There is oversight. There is
okay, but there's
oversight.
A secret interpretation of Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which nobody knows except for the Intel Committee of Congress, and even they say that they think most Americans would be appalled by that. And to say that it's been approved by the courts is a misnomer, because it gives the impression that federal courts have approved this, when in reality it's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which has rubber stamped
every single... Which is a federal court.
No, it is a secret court set up at the Justice Department that has federal judges on it, but last year it approved 2,000 out of 2,000 applications. They hear only the government side, and they've rejected an application 1 time since 1978.
Let me bring this back to Julian Assange. You know, back in 2010, an email that was revealed from you by Bart Gellman in Time magazine said that you hoped the revelations from WikiLeaks would bring about, quote, the total annihilation of the current U.S. regime. Is that still your goal, and what did you mean by that?
I didn't say that, and there is no such email.
It was quoted in Time magazine in December 2010.
Yeah, well, I mean, Time magazine. But it's very interesting that you raise such a thing like that. You know, we are in a situation where we have these extraordinary revelations that are causing great embarrassment to a new national security state that is arising in the US. It's not just the US. Similar national security states are rising in other countries. But it is trying to evade democratic will. It's treating Congress like a bunch of fools. And we saw Clapper up there lying, bold-faced lying to Congress. We have secret interpretations of the law. What does the law mean if there's secret interpretations in secret courts? We have Bradley Manning's trial continuing tomorrow. A young man, a good man, as far as anyone can tell. Motivations are entirely political, as far as anyone argues. Same with Snowden. Being put through this meat grinder, where a new precedent is trying to be set, which is communicating with the press, is committing espionage. And it's not just a precedent that's been trying to be set on these whistleblowers. It's a precedent that's trying to be set on journalists and publishers as well. We saw that in the case
Meantime, you're being given safe harbor by the Ecuadorian government. The Korea administration has been admonished by human rights organizations for restricting press freedoms, prosecuting journalists. The Inter-American Press Association calls its new media law, quote, the most serious setback for freedom of the press in the recent history of Latin America. So does it make you uncomfortable to be harbored by a government that goes after journalists? And do you see a double standard there?
Well, these accusations are largely blown up. There are, of course, all sorts of problems in any particular country. But why are they being spoken about? What has happened here is a mass revelation of illegal transnational spying by the National Security Agency, the collection of the communications records of every single person in the United States, laying out the entire community structure of the United States. And these sort of attempts are merely a mechanism to try and shift ground. But, go to CPJ, Committee to Protect Journalists in New York. It lists the number of journalists in Ecuadorian prisons, 0. And it has been 0 for a very long time. There's 48 in Turkey. So we've got to keep things in some kind of perspective. There's no allegation that Ecuador Ecuador is involved in mass transnational surveillance or assassination programs and so on.